2. UFO, a love story. The boy and the girl live in a small town. They have been dating for years. Neither has ever dated anyone else. Neither has ever wanted to either. One night the two are parked down by the lake when something comes floating in over the water. The something is round, pulsing, and bright. It hovers right over their car. "Stay here," says the boy. "I'll be right back." He starts to open the door. "No," says the girl, grabbing his arm. "I have to check it out," says the boy. The boy stands by the car, staring up at the light. He shades his eyes with one hand. He wants to speak but can't think what to say. Then the thing moves away and is gone. "What was that?" says the girl, getting out of the car. She walks around and stands by the boy. He reaches out, holds her, and shakes his head. "No one's going to believe this," he says. The boy tells the town. He tells everybody in it. He tells everybody, absolutely every single person. He tells them all about the UFO, how it looked, how it sounded, how it flew. He tells them exactly where he was, where he and the girl saw it, and when they saw it, and from what angle. And the girl stands beside him the entire time, and nods and agrees and smiles, and yet not one person in the town believes even a word of their story. "Aren't you a little old for this?" they say. "We thought better of you," they tell the girl. "How come you looked like that?" the boy says in the car, later on. "Like what?" says the girl. "Like you were lying," says the boy. "Like you didn't believe it." "Well," says the girl, "maybe we were wrong." The boy drives her home. They sit outside her house. The girl gets out. He drives on. A few days later, the invasion begins. The UFOs are everywhere, every night. One by one, the townspeople see them. One by one, their eyes open wide. The saucers come in on anti-gravity beams, flashing their high-energy lights, making the weirdest woo-woo-woo noises, and emitting strange multicolored fogs. Every now and then, a tree catches fire and burns all the way to the ground. "It's an epidemic," says the doctor. "It's an emergency," says the mayor. "It's those crazy kids," says the spinsters on Grant Street. And the spinsters are, of course, correct, only it's not kids, it's just the boy. He's sunk all his money, all his resources and efforts into just this one thing. He's up half the night designing model spaceships, and the other half sneaking around town, sitting on rooftops, and dangling his saucers down in front of people's windows with a fishing pole. And strangely enough, everyone's buying it, one after another, then the next. Pretty soon, there will be no one left in town who hasn't seen a UFO. And those very people who laughed and scowled when the boy and the girl told their story are now going around swearing up and down that they've seen Martians out on their front lawn. And one day on the street, the mayor comes up and puts a hand on the boy's shoulder. "Son," he says, "I have something to tell you. We may have been wrong about you." That girl, in the meantime, she hasn't seen much of the boy. He hasn't been calling her back. He hasn't been coming to pick her up from work. In fact, she hasn't seen him at all. And so she walks home all by herself, late at night, through the streets of the town. And she stands staring into the dark window of the travel agency, looking at the posters on the walls. Rome, Paris, New York City, the pyramids, Ayers Rock. So many wonderful places to be, and look where she is. And then one night, the girl catches the boy. She's sitting in his room when he comes home. He's holding a spaceship in one hand. The other holds a flashlight and a megaphone. "It's you?" says the girl. "You're the invasion?" "I was going to tell you," says the boy. The girl sits and stares at him for a long moment. "Come away with me," she says. The girl puts her things into the car. "I'll follow you in a little while," the boy says. "I just have to finish what I'm doing here is all." "Whatever you say," says the girl. Weeks go by. The invasion intensifies. TV crews start to come around. Local stations first, then regional affiliates. Big vans with generators arrive. The boy has a map on his wall that's marked with circles and pins. Circles are for the people he hasn't fooled. He plans to put all the pins in. In the city, the girl gets a job in a diner. It's nothing special, but it pays the bills. On the day she has off, she goes out and explores. There's a whole city out there for her. Sometimes at night, the girl lies in bed and watches the headlights on the ceiling. She listens to the engines of the cars outside, idling at the streetlights, waiting. The girl feels like she's waiting too, but she doesn't know what for. She only hopes it'll come soon. And then one day she walks to the door. It comes at work, in the shape of a man. He smiles and she smiles back. They start to go out. He takes her around town. It turns out he has a private jet. The man takes the girl to visit Paris and Rome. They go to Berlin and Prague. They fly down to Thailand and then to Australia. They go to see Ayers Rock. Sure, there are nights when the girl cannot sleep for thinking about the boy, nights when she wishes he were beside her, when she can almost feel his arms around her. But when she turns, the boy is not there, and she remembers he stayed in the town. Those are the nights when the girl cries for hours. In the morning, she pretends she's fine. And then one day, the girl buys a dress and starts planning to walk down the aisle. She stands before the mirror, looks herself up and down. "This is what you want," she tells herself. That night the boy has a terrible dream. In this dream, He sees the girl. She's flying away in a plane with a man. The dream seems very real. The boy tries to call the girl, but he finds her number's been disconnected. He doesn't have her address. He doesn't know where she is. He has no way to get in touch with her. The boy sits and stares. Then he goes downtown to the junkyard and starts poking around. A pile of parts begins to form. The boy's there for quite some time. On the day of the wedding, in the back room of the church, everything's very quiet. A makeup artist is doing the girl's eyes. A TV is tuned into the shopping network. Out in the church, all the people are waiting, lined up in the pews. Suddenly a man runs in. "Aliens are attacking," he yells. Sure enough, in the faraway town, a real UFO is in the air. Its laser guns are zapping the town. Real buildings are falling down. Back in the city, all the wedding guests are piled together in the room, watching the coverage. "That's right," says the anchorman. "Aliens are real, and what's more, they're out to get us." The army rolls into the town with their tanks. TV cameras are everywhere. Suddenly, the saucer turns and dives and slams into the door of the town hall. For a while there is silence as the townspeople gather around the grounded saucer. Back in the church, everything is still. Then a door in the UFO opens. The girl's eyes widen as a shadowy figure emerges and comes down the ramp. "What's this?" says the reporter. "It's a human being." "Oh," the girl says, "it's the boy." "Why did you do it?" the reporters are yelling. "Why would you attack your own town?" "Is that thing on?" the boy says to the camera. "You bet your life," says the cameraman. "I did it for this moment," the boy says to the world. "I did it to get someone's attention. There's someone out there I have to find, someone I have to get in touch with. If you're out there," he says, "I hope you are. I just want to say I was wrong. I spent my whole life trying to fit in, when I should have been with you getting out. And there's something else," the boy continues, now moving closer to the camera. "There's something I want everyone to know." A second later, the entire world gives one collective gasp. The girl is running from the church to her car. The train of her dress trails behind her. She is holding her bouquet in one hand. She throws it back over her shoulder. "We don't understand," the announcer is saying. "We don't understand what we just saw. We don't understand what on earth is happening. We don't know what's real anymore." The girl roars down the main street into the town. "Where is he?" she screams out of the window. "He comes," the answer, "in the jail." The girl squeals in the municipal parking lot. "Who are you?" all the reporters yell. "You can't go in there," the guards say, but the girl doesn't answer, just moves into the jail, past security down the holding cells. All around her lights are flashing and sirens are going off. Doors are opening before her as she goes. The jail is starting to fall apart. The girl moves down the line of cells. "Where are you?" she yells. "I'm here." At the end, the familiar voice calls out. The girl walks the last few yards, and as she goes, she feels something strange, a prickling on the top of her head. She reaches up tentatively, then she smiles. She's found the two antennae growing there. "Oh, look," says the boy, "you've got them too." "I do," smiles the girl, "same as you." And they look at each other in their own true forms. "It was always just the two of us," says the girl. And now the bars of the cell are collapsing, and the floor is cracking apart, and the boy and the girl come together and kiss and fall into each other's arms. And meanwhile, outside in the parking lot, the whole town looks up as the jail crumbles away and something huge rises up from beneath with the boy and the girl on top of it. "Oh, look," people say, "it's a real spaceship." And the boy and girl smile down, and everyone waves and dances and cheers while the ship blasts away from town. The hat. The young man has never been afraid of hats before. In fact, he's recently found himself admiring them. The hats on the heads of men in this town have actually seemed to him quite marvelous. So it is strange that he should now be so frightened, so incredibly frightened of this one. Granted, this hat's just appeared on the table while the young man's attention was turned to the dancers on the stage. And granted, it is a strange hat, the kind he hasn't seen before, but even so, there's something else, something he can't place. The young man sits and stares at the hat, and then he realizes it's staring back. The young man is now sitting very, very still. He is trying very hard not to move. He has this fear that if he does move, the hat will suddenly leap at him and tear out his throat. The young man tries to forget about this madness, but for some reason it has a hold of him. It takes everything he has just to find the courage to stand, to slide his chair back and back away toward the door. The hat does not follow, does not make a move. It simply sits there on the table staring. Staring at the young man. The young man turns away and runs. The young man now is walking down the street. His breath is starting to come more easily. It was just a hat, the young man thinks, just a stupid hat. Someone left it on the table and I didn't see it at first. He forces a laugh and then shakes his head. And it certainly wasn't staring, he says. And then up ahead the young man sees the hat again, and once again it's staring right at him. This time the hat is on a windowsill, up ahead at the end of the block. Hats can't stare, the young man said. It's a physical impossibility, but on the other hand, they can't walk either, so how did that hat get there? He freezes in terror, then laughs again. Different hat, he says, it's a different hat. This seems to calm him enough to carry on. But he doesn't look at the hat as he walks by. The young man reaches the boarding house and goes in, and directly upstairs he sits on the bed and takes off his boots. Then he checks around the room and in the closet. No hat's in there. The young man says happily and immediately turns in for the night. It takes him some time to finally fall asleep. The bed seems cold and lonely, and when he does manage to somehow drift away, the young man has very strange dreams. In the morning he awakes. The hat is sitting on his chest. Ah! The young man shrieks and then bats it off. The hat flies across the room and into the corner, where it hits the wall and falls to the floor. It lies there crookedly, half behind the spittoon, but it is still staring up at him. The young man grabs his pants and boots and runs. He runs out the door and down the stairs. He flees the town, the hat's haunted town, and strikes out into the desert alone. He runs into the sun, over the dunes, past the cacti. He runs all day long, for days and weeks on end. He runs and runs, he runs and runs without stopping. Every now and then he glances back, but he never ever sees anything. Never even so much as a sign of the hat, not a single sign. Still he hurries on, but finally, after a long time, a very long time, the young man begins to grow tired. He slows to a frightened jog, then to a walk. He walks and walks, he walks on. The sun beats down on the young man from the sky. There is no water, no food, no shade. The young man starts to stagger. His flesh burns and bubbles. He's lost. He doesn't know where he is. Finally he collapses. He's lying in the sand. He doesn't move. He can't move. He doesn't. And it is then, and only then, that the woman appears. She comes over the dune like an angel. The young man looks up. His lips crack as they smile. The woman's hair is shining in the sun. The woman helps the young man to a nearby hidden cave. The cave is full of many rooms and corridors. The darkness is held back by candles and torches. They enter a room with a table. There on the table are bowls of food, and a pitcher of water and a glass. "Sit," says the woman. "Sit down and eat." And she turns and walks from the room. The young man doesn't waste time. He starts to eat. The food is delicious, the water cool. The young man eats and eats until he is full. Then a shadow falls across the room, and the young man looks up. In the doorway is the woman. She is no longer clothed. Her body is perfectly bare. Her lips are very red, and she is smiling, smiling. But then she steps into the room. She is wearing the hat. The young man's chair scrapes backward as he stands up. It crashes against the wall and it breaks. The woman keeps coming closer and closer, and from its perch upon her head the hat stares. The young man steps back and it hits the wall himself. He feels the cold rock against his spine. He stares at the hat as the hat comes ever closer. The hat never once looks away. The woman now stands before the young man. Her eyes look up, searching for his, but his are still fixed on the staring hat, so the woman reaches up to touch his cheek. The woman's eyes are warm and very, very wide when the young man finally looks into them, and suddenly, without even noticing, the hat on her head is no longer concerns him. The young man reaches out and takes the woman in his arms, and they come together in a kiss. The woman gives a sigh, and the young man begins to lower her down to the floor of the cave, but just before the woman's body reaches the ground, a silent transaction occurs. The woman reaches up with a sure and unseen hand and transfers the hat onto the head of the man. The Magic Pig. A man comes home from work one day to discover that his daughter has found God. "Are you kidding me?" he says. "What are you talking about? You are always such a rational person." The members of the family sit down to dinner. "You really think there is a God?" the man says. "Why not?" says his daughter. "Why on earth not?" "What reason is there to believe there isn't?" The man looks at her. "I can't help but think," he says, "that if there were a God, he'd give us some kind of sign." And at that very moment a statue of a pig on its haunches suddenly materializes in the middle of the dining room table. "See," the man's daughter says, pointing at the pig. "See, see, see." But the man's family bursts into action, making calls, telephoning the neighbors, and taking pictures. Only the man does not move from his place. He simply sits there and stares at the pig. After a while he reaches out and gently touches one of its legs. It's perfectly solid, probably wood, and made, he thinks, of a rather crude fashion. The man looks up at the ceiling, half hoping to see some gaping hole through which it could have fallen. Then he peers under the table for hidden mechanisms like he read about once in a book of seances. But there's nothing to find wherever he looks, so the man just sits there and frowns. Then he gets up and he goes into the other room and sits down and turns on the television. The days go by. The house is crowded with pilgrims, people from other cities, other lands. They stand at the man's dining room and stare at the pig. Some claim that it speaks to them, others cry for joy. But the man just stands there, arms crossed over his chest. He doesn't believe even a single word. "How can you not believe?" all the pilgrims say. "It happened right there in front of you." "I believe something happened, yes," the man says, "but I don't know what it was or why." The pilgrims regard him with wide, confused eyes. They shake their heads and walk away. "All right," the man lies in bed with his wife. "Can't you at least try to believe?" she says. "I try every day," the man says to her. "Do you really?" says his wife. "Really?" "Well," the man says after a while, "let's just say I wonder." "You should wonder harder," the man's wife says. "It would make you a happier person." The man lies there in silence and stares at the ceiling. "You think I'm unhappy?" he says. The next day the man sits at the table with the pig. "All right," God says, "if you exist, show me one more sign with this pig thing." And he sits there all day, waiting for the pig to do something. "What are you doing, Dad?" the man's daughter says when she gets home from school that afternoon. "Nothing," says the man. He looks rather sheepish. He takes the pig off the table and goes into his study. There he locks the door, puts the pig on the floor, and he kneels right in front of it. "Come on, pig," he says. "Come on, it's just us. Make me happy. Make me believe, please." Late that night a knock comes to the study door. "Honey," says the man's wife, "are you in there?" "Yes," says the man, "but please leave me alone. I'm in here with the pig." The man's wife hesitates. "But we miss you," she says, "and also the pig." "We don't need the pig," the man says. "You have God. And I'll be out when I'm done. I promise I will." There's silence, and the man's wife walks away. Days go by, and then weeks and months, and then eventually years. The man's beard grows gray and very, very long. His eyes dim, his bones weaken, his muscles atrophy. The man sits and stares at the pig. But the pig says nothing, reveals nothing. There is no sign, nothing, no sign of a sign. And as he sits, the man grows very old. And then finally, after what seems like a lifetime, the man gives a sigh and stands up. "There's no God," he says, "that much is certain. And what's more, I miss my wife and children." He turns and walks to the study door, unlocks it, and opens it up. The hallway outside is very, very dark. He peers down in the direction of the living room. The entire house seems strangely quiet. Maybe they're asleep, the man thinks, and he starts off silently down the hall. Behind him, the pig rises to its feet. Bigfoot. A man is walking through the woods when suddenly he sees Bigfoot. Holy cow, the man thinks. Bigfoot. Bigfoot sees him and runs away. The man chases Bigfoot through the woods for a long time. He chases him for hours and hours. Finally, he gets close enough to leap, which he does. Bigfoot comes crashing to the ground. "I've got him," the man thinks as he ties Bigfoot's feet. I've got him, I've caught Bigfoot." Almost instantaneously, the man becomes a celebrity. People from TV come to his house. "How does it feel to have captured Bigfoot?" they say. "It feels good," says the man, "really good." A lot of people didn't think that Bigfoot really existed, the people say when they wait for a response. "Well," says the man, "I guess now they know," and everybody laughs and claps their hands. The man sits in his house and watches the news. Bigfoot has been taken to the zoo. They show the lines of people outside the gate. There are dozens of them, hundreds, thousands. Everyone wants to see Bigfoot, thinks the man, and now everybody will. That night the man has a very bad dream. In his dream he is sitting in a cage. Someone keeps asking him what he wants for dinner, but he gets nothing, no matter what he says. In the morning the man wakes up feeling strange. He goes into the kitchen for some cereal. He sits down at the table but doesn't feel like eating. Finally he gets in his car. In line at the zoo the man is recognized. "You're the guy who caught Bigfoot," someone says. "Why are you waiting in line?" says someone else. "Won't they let you cut to the front?" "It's okay," says the man. "Really, I don't mind." Truth to be told, he's terrified. When it comes time for his turn to go in and see Bigfoot, the man stands toward the back very still. Bigfoot doesn't look good. He's not moving around. He's just sitting on a log in the middle of the enclosure. The enclosure itself is very nice. The zoo people build it special. There's a cement pool and some fake rocks and a painted backdrop of a forest. Bigfoot is just staring at the ground. "Hey," says the man, stepping forward after a while. "Hey," he says to Bigfoot, "are you okay?" He doesn't expect a reply, so he's surprised when Bigfoot looks up. "Do I look okay?" says Bigfoot. "Does this look okay to you?" They make a big deal out of it on the news. "Bigfoot speaks," the announcers say. "Bigfoot human." But the man begins to feel very, very small. The TV now pictures him in an unfavorable light. "Who is this man?" the announcers say, "and what exactly were his motives?" There's an interview with Bigfoot. He complains about his treatment. "I lost 3 teeth when they tackled me," he says. "I was just trying to get home and read the papers." That night the man decides to go to see a movie, but the second he sets foot outside, a rock flies out of the blue and smashes him in the face. "Murderer!" a voice screams. "Murderer!" Another rock hits him in the shoulder, and the next one breaks his knee. The man falls to the ground in pain. "Who are you going to kill next?" the mob screams. "And what are you going to do after that?" "I never killed anyone." The man quietly sobs as he drags himself back into the house. He slams and locks the door. He curls up on the rug. A few moments later he passes out. The days go by and then the weeks. Still the mob screams outside. The man thought that it would lessen eventually, but it never does. News choppers circle overhead, blaring horrible things at him through the megaphones. Bright lights shine through the windows at night and make it hard to sleep. The rocks slam against the aluminum siding in a constant, steady barrage. The man overturns the dressers and tables and barricades the doors. And then one night, there it is, the fire outside the window. The man watches as the torches are passed around, hand to hand to hand to hand. He watches as the mob comes closing in an ever-tightening circle. The entire house is surrounded. There is no way out. "What do I do?" cries the man as he stumbles through the house. "What do I do?" he shrieks as it starts to burn. And as the flames fill the house with heat and light, the man holds up his hands and suddenly he can see right through them. And then he starts to laugh. And in the morning the mob combs through the smoldering wreckage. There is no sign, no one, of the man. "It is impossible," they say. "He couldn't have gotten away." "You can't catch the invisible man," a voice says. "Not that way."